So what I like to always start off by is first talking about gear a little bit because that is important, and then also talking about what I know of these fighters. Magnus is a complete unknown to me, I believe. I don't believe I ran into them at SKBC at all, and if so, I don't remember it. Farix is somebody I've been trying to find space and time to fight for quite a while. I think that their method of fighting is really, really interesting. Farix is one of the first, like, new age of belts I've seen coming up, warlords I've seen coming up that is really into leg shots. Has some very fantastic use of a center grip shield, getting behind it and really using the mobility of it. Something I think is super important, something I really took away from SKBC. Excellent footwork, excellent just overall mobility. So let's see how this goes here. With these higher level videos, I'm going to try to skim through them because, again, I feel like I have less overall valuable feedback and it's kind of just for enjoyment. So let's see. We are doing a first 10 here. Quick credit to the channel. This is from MorphC's channel. If you like watching tape and you're not subscribed to MorphC, you're missing out on some of the best footage that gets uploaded. Good, way to come over the top. That ability to both like move laterally and pop over the top is like one of the things I think is super frustrating about Farix's fighting style. Again, I haven't had a chance to fight him in a long, long time, but I feel like it definitely would be. Like, okay, not only can I move... Good shot over the top. Not only can I move laterally really well, I'm also very poppy. And I believe I've seen part of this. I believe Morph begins keeping track of the wins for us. Yep, barely got over. I'm waiting to see Farix start throwing the things that I know that they're really, really, really crazy good at. These crazy behind the shield dark sides. Like, first person I ever saw throw a dark side that ended up being a flat wrap to the opponent's shield side. Picked the thigh there pretty easily.
I was very sad when I didn't get that.
No, up into the hip. Right on the line, it looks like. Yeah, good call there. Arguable, but in general, if it ever touches the more lethal zone, that's what we're going to want to take. If you got to think about it, it's good.
I was very sad when I didn't get that.
2-2. Thanks, Morph. Like that. Farix is probably the best board fighter I've seen at going dark like that and having such a wide variety of shots. And also, I always love, like, I love watching people, really, really high-level fighters high cross the crap out of each other. You know, my first decade of fighting, like, high crossing was, like, the light and the way and the truth. And then I spent, like, the next several years unlearning that, only to, like, you know, in the past year or two, realize, like, oh, against torches, like, some crazy high crosses are actually pretty decent. At a, you know, fighting those torch-style dome shields, like, actually being able to pick an arm off there. And, yeah, it's just tools in the toolbox. It's a big commitment to go all the way over and not hit anything. Just like throwing for a leg is a huge commitment. It's a big movement. Yeah, way to pick the arm. So that shot, like targeting this sword side forearm, is something I really struggle with, and something that I've also seen Farix and other fighters throw that I always have a hard time with is the weird like curling upshot where like you're literally turning over and your front edge of the swording up into your righty board opponent's sword side arm. I wish we had better language for this. It gets clunky to talk about it. I love it when people motion when they win. Arm for chest, the classic high cross trade. Secure, I'm curious, I know there's a little bit delay here, but I'm curious about like pokes like this. Now obviously Farix is excellent, right? But this seems like, I know that we're just fucking with our opponent. I know that we're just fucking with our opponent and probably trying to initiate the exchange and try to get him to maybe reach for it. But it just feels like, do you feel like this is a safe enough, like, reach? A safe enough thing to, like, justify its use? It just feels super risky. I think that, like, definitely here, Farix is showing that, you know, he really understands their range. They're at a really good range. If Magnus here strikes back, their hand's in a good flight path, so maybe it's okay. I just feel like, especially against like higher level fighters, if you're trying to cause some sort of like some kind of static or misdirection there, you can do it more through just like body movement, foot movement, just moving your hand aggressively rather than committing, because it's just a huge commitment here. And I think Farix can really get away with it because of how mobile they are. Ooh, that was an interesting geometry to get that cross in. So a little bit of a flippy flop to the outside, flippy flop to the inside, flippy flop to the outside, and then just kind of scoots over. What a weird timing shot to like miss this hand that's floating out and come up and in. But this shot right here is kind of what I'm talking about. That low like rising thing. And this isn't low, but basically this same movement, but doing it from below the hemisphere line of the shield and coming up into forearm. But yeah, interesting geometry on that shot.
Oh, damn, sorry.
Tried super duper hard for it.
You took that side step, and I was like, no!
There was a shoulder there, I swear.
There was a second ago.
I feel like pump fakes are king, but it's definitely also about who you're it's also definitely about who you're fighting. And this is why I love watching Farix fight so much. The fucking like shield check wrap. Like that is old school where I come from. That is like this right here. Now obviously Farix is probably throwing it at a much higher level, but fuck dude. This is like early 2000s, early mid 2000s like classic melee. Yeah, it's definitely true, Kurai. Yeah, the more that I watched that and started like realizing, oh, he's super far away and his hands in their hands in a good spot, it makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I love this right here. Ramon from Midwest Dag Bell has a very kind of similar thing he'll do, but like he'll be at about this range where Farix is at, and then square his feet up, and then he will kick the bottom of somebody's shield at the exact same time he throws a flat wrap, and it's so satisfying. It's just such a muscular, like chunky shot.
How dare you learn it?
Didn't work, but it was sick.
Nice, Simon.
Yep, good way to trade. This is that right there is something that I've gotten a tiny bit better at recently that I've noticed. My ability to trade out when I'm down an arm has gone up quite a bit. So I wonder now, because there seems like there's been a high volume of high crosses here, I wonder now if we'll start seeing one of these fighters mix in more dark sides. Nah, sick level change fake from Farix there. Yeah, this is how I really like to throw. This is how I ideally would throw my flat wraps. It's how I feel I do it, but I obviously probably don't execute as well as Farix does. But that kind of fade away flat wrap where you are low and your head's going to the right a little bit and then you rise right there. I do the same thing because of my weight. I can't quite go as like far forward or down. I have to just kind of do a little bit of a lean. Okay, really close to the double pick there on the arm. Way to finish it up. I'm surprised by the lack of dark sides from Farix. I think that's one of the things that they're really proficient at. And I don't know if that's a stylistic thing. Maybe they're just trying to move away from it a little bit. PTQ in the background thinking, these kids these days. Did you guys know I went from no orders to Warlord faster than anybody? And you're like, yes, PTQ, it's very impressive. Let's get you back in the home. So you can two-stick the nurse aides. I'm just kidding. I love PTQ. PTQ is definitely, in his videos, his insight and analysis is definitely one of the things that really hooked me into wanting to try to be a better fighter. Especially if I could just ramble for a second. Especially whenever I've always wanted to be good. And even when I was stuck at Melee in Tulsa, I wanted to be good. And so when I transitioned into the wider world of foam fighting, after far too long, honestly, I really, I didn't have the same barrier of pride and like xenophobia that a lot of other guys from my group did that thought that you know, they generally refer to fighters from other locations as a series of slurs. And it was really neat to like realize there's this whole wider world and SKBC exists and there's all these instructors out there who are so good. And PTQ really PTQ Brennan way back in the day, Brett, even like Diego Delos like way back then, watching their videos from SKBC, talking about programming your opponent, shot development, really set the hook deep. I think, Charlie, the only thing I asked you about was the crazy range fake. Or the poking thing that Farix was doing from far away. Yeah, head, but it was almost really sick.
6.
Keep thinking you're gonna zig when you were gonna zag. Oh, sorry, go in front.
Close. I appreciate the intent from Farix there. That's one of the things, like, I always try to give, way to dig for that back leg. Something Farix is so good at is digging for, like, those back legs.
Yes!
I think I saw Farix win in the Sword and Board, a video of him winning a Sword and Board part of a Weapon Master tournament by, like, throwing under, picking front leg, then stepping way through and coming back and picking rear leg. Just so sick and clean. But one of the things I always try to do whenever I give feedback to fighters, like, in person, is try to give really, like, hard, tactile, touchable, feely pieces of advice. I don't like old, good, like, kung fu-y, like, wisdom. Like, you know, I'm not going to tell you wax on, wax off. I want to really explain, like, lanes and angles as much as I'm able to. And, I feel that idea of, like, striking with intent, it is so noticeable between skilled fighters and new fighters, where you have new fighters who will launch themselves into exchanges, and none of the things they're doing seem coherent. Then you look at more and more skilled fighters, every single piece of movement they do, every single piece of, like, fakery and shield movement, like, even just this is what I'm moving with intention. Farix is a little bit of dip offside, moving through the motion, even pumps their gear down, comes up, throws high. Didn't work, but in that one little, like, if you were playing a fighting game on a controller, that little, like, 2-button combo right there, there was an intent to it. Draw the person's guard down to the side, try to throw up over the shield. There's intent. Throwing with intent.
Same here. I had this at the last second.
I wish there was a way to no stage that in Iron Mountain's Amp Guard lore, where your shield bash ranks on the tier of it. I still think it's so funny, like, I legitimately, when that happened, okay, Simo, legitimately when you shield bash me to the ground, I remember looking and, like, seeing, like, 3 other guys between you and me and thinking, oh, I don't gotta worry about Sage. And I go back to fighting, and the next thing I know, I'm, like, flying through the air. Like, oh, I wonder how long Sage has been waiting to do that. Nate talking all this shit down in Oklahoma. Way to crush it and clean it up.
7-9.
7-9, thanks Morph.
7-9.
Yeah, I talked to my boss about this a lot. He's like a Ren Fair guy, so we talk about this, and, like, I explain it to him as, like, it's probably the safest full contact sport game, whatever, that you can play. This is the kind of shit I love. This is what I love about Farix. Just effortlessly coming under and throwing here. And even with just how far their shield is planed over, guarding their back, this looks almost like the crazy flat wrap he'll throw from dark. They'll flow from dark. Pronouns are hard when you grew up in the Midwest and you're drunk. But yeah, so, like, this right here at that shield positioning from Farix, it looks just like the flat wrap they flow also from dark. And so this is kind of that idea of tunneling, where your shots will all look the same up until they break in a different direction, right? It's just that because we're going dark side, it's such a huge movement. It's a big tunnel we're driving through. And that's one of the things that I really like about throwing dark a lot. I don't throw dark a ton, but definitely among my cohort regionally, I throw dark a lot more often than other people. And one of the things I like about it is that, like, the second my hand passes my belly button and going under my shield, you don't know if I'm coming out flat, you don't know if I'm coming out in a chop, you don't know if I'm rolling over going backhand. In that one moment, I have a chance to attack in a lot of different ways from a couple of different angles. And I also like, for a lot of that reason is I like throwing double taps from dark.
8, 9.
Where you'll throw like flat chop, then flat, like you'll throw an actual reverse wrap
8
where you
Charlie.
roll over.
9 bin.
Sounds like we just got the call at 9 bin, so it's match point.
Here's.
Yeah, so that's it. Rolls
Good fight,
out.
buddy.
Good fights.
9 bin.
Here's.
Thanks.
Good fight,
And you
buddy.
can just see just from just how Farix escapes out of that engagement, that they definitely have like wonderful balance. Oh, we're listening to Fallout music now. Wonderful balance, wonderful control. I really wonder if maybe they were just a little bit tired. I don't know, it's hard for me not to overanalyze when I watch these things. That's kind of just how I look at them. But maybe they're a little bit tired. They weren't doing as many mobile things as they usually do, as many crazy dark side shots as they usually do. Or maybe I wonder if it's something that they're actually trying to drill down on, where there's a little bit less movement. I think that's one of the things that people can do to really up their game. Obviously, again, Farix much higher level fighter than I. But it's one of the things that you can do to really up your game is just generally throw less things, generally be a little bit less crazy, a little bit more reserved in your movements, because there's just less chances for you to fail when you're doing that. Just try to be a little bit more conservative. But that's all we got for that first video. The stream's going to keep going. I'm going to go ahead and cut the review recording there.